Hello, everyone. Welcome to Made to Dream. I'm your host, Maya Chanel, and here we share stories from women around the world to inspire and empower women to dream with unlimited possibilities. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Miss Haleh Olsen, and she is a functional nutritionist, and I'm so excited for her to share her story with you today and share how you can be inspired by her story as well. So, hi, how are you doing today, Haleh?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me today.
No, thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited. I'm always excited for all these stories because I feel like I'm learning something as well. So I'm excited to hear more about your story, your journey, and your creativity to success. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Wonderful. Thank you. So my name is Haleh Olsen, and I am by trade a functional nutritionist. And unofficially, I do a lot of things, and most of them don't go well. And in the professional world, one of the blessings that I have received is I somehow by accident found my way exactly where I need to be. And this is, I say it jokingly, but I think I really mean it with my whole heart. If I was to be born again, I think I will do the same thing. And I hope to not have to walk through the same paths, but I do believe
Mhm,
where I stand is actually a byproduct of all the little
mhm,
collective things that brought me here. So I do work with nutrition, and that's what I started with, but it has kind of grown to be a little bit more. It's been 15 years that I'm practicing. So it has maybe grown, or the beginning is like that's how much calcium you need, to very much getting involved in the lives of my clients and kind of walking them through the journey. So we have become kind of a one-on-one, more of a coaching with the background of science with it.
mhm. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I want to know, as always, we like to get the beginning of the journey and how you got on this journey. So I want to know, how did you get into the world of nutrition and how has that been a motivation for your life?
Thank you. This is actually very personal. I'll try to keep my composure. If you see my lips a little tremble, it's still, I mean, sometimes I have to pinch myself to see where I stand because there was a lot of pieces. And that's why I actually love to be the guest, because I think my story is not just unique, but if each of us give it a voice, it would kind of create a step for the next person, kind of pushing through that obstacles. But my story is a little bit of a mess, but I kind of grab it from when I was 17. Or actually, I'll go back a little bit and say when I was 12. I was really
Mhm,
lucky to be born in a family that, regardless of what we had and what we did not have, we had a really close connection. I grew up with a great support of, there was nothing I couldn't do if I didn't set my mind to it. But very early on, unfortunately, my grandfather, who was a pillar in my life, I don't know why, but I was really, really close to him, passed away through cancer. His journey was very unique, and a lot of us have family member that we have lost. But he was given 5 months, and somehow through a phenomenal medical care and a group of individuals that came together, he was able to actually live for 5 or 6 years. And he passed away from a common cold
wow.
just because his immune system was.
Wow.
So I had an option. I mean, I had something in my mind that I wanted to give that gift of time to families. I just didn't know where I would land. And byproduct of my mother, I love her to pieces. She's not really a gypsy, but I call her a gypsy because she always liked to move us around. Um, 17, we landed back in the United States. So she finished her education in the United States, but I did not speak a word of English. So at 17,
Mhm,
we arrived to the States, and my mother had the biggest smile and said, um, this is where all those classes that we suggest that you would take would come handy. The
mhm,
language barrier was a little bit of an obstacle, but the biggest factor was I was at the age that I finished high school, came into a new community, and I didn't really fit in. I couldn't communicate. Like
mhm.
my first full sentence was, I am socks, which I meant to say, I suck, because I took a class and I did not pass the test. um, Fast forward, I took a little bit longer time. Traditionally, and this is one of the things I love to talk about, my education took much longer just because one class had to be taken in 3 different ways to actually get there. It took 3 years for me to master the language, and by master meaning pass the class.
Mhm.
But there was always this conversation between my advisors that you shouldn't apply to that university. You shouldn't apply to a medical school. You shouldn't apply to this. When you're a girl, you're first generation, English is your second language, maybe pick something else. And that was at the beginning of the career. And I went into a little bit of nursing. I dabbled a little bit into getting into a naturopathic because I wanted to be a physician. And then one class, one professor, and one person who absolutely inspired me to be over a summer class changed my whole career to be a nutritionist. It was a cooking class, therapeutic cooking class.
Mhm.
And that was the first person who said, Haleh, I don't think your accent is bad, or the fact that you're a girl and a first generation in the States would become, or actually I'm Middle Eastern. Most people don't know what my background is, with my last name being
Right.
Olsen. But because of X, Y, and Z, this is not defining who you are. And she really encouraged me to actually go to nutrition, and it fit like a glove. I went forward, I did 2 undergrads, and then I took a little time. One of my biggest goals, or biggest goals to myself, was to give back to the community. So I started working
Mhm.
with food stamp, and I started writing curriculums, and I went into the families and worked about, like, if you get $400, how do you feed a family of
Mhm.
4? But when I wanted to
Right.
go back to a master's program, almost everyone, even including my school, they said, Haleh, I don't think this is really good for you. Your English is not really strong. Again, and you're a woman, for what you want to do for one-on-one counseling, this might not be a great fit. Tell me something I can't do, and then I will go 15 ways about it to get it done.
Mhm.
It was really tough because the dean of school actually came down and said, I think you would make a great, go to a different field, go to physical activity. I think you're tall, you're lean, you would make a great example for people to stay fit. But I wanted to work with diabetes. I wanted to work with autoimmune disorder. I wanted to work with cancer. I wanted to work with individuals that at the end of their line, I have no hope. I don't
Mhm.
know how I passed. I don't know how I got to my school. I actually graduated with honors, and that's my
Mhm.
community. And going and getting a job, my last name was actually different. That was another whole obstacle. And the day and today, when I stand here in front of you, not only those individuals who stood by me, but actually my clients, very much each of them. The first year when I came out, I'm pretty sure I wasn't as good as I am today just because of experience,
Uh-huh.
but I still have 2 of my clients from the first year I started working. And that goes beyond just the thank you. This is more like a human support. They lifted me
Mhm.
up every single part. So I'm hoping today, however I can, with whatever question it comes, there was a lot of no's in my way. There was a lot of
Mhm.
you shouldn't or you can't. There was a lot of, I don't think you will cut it out because your last name is not easy to pronounce, or your first name. I mean, I
Right.
always joke about it. My father had a great time with my first name. But none of those were the reason why to stop. And I wouldn't be able to be so blessed to stand in a millions of lives. I have a ton of great clients, and I knock on wood, other than few of them that I got to them very late, all of them are healthy, all of them are alive, all of them are with families. So when I look at them, I actually remember the time I got back with my grandfather. So that's just in a nutshell of some of the craziness. And each story, I always, when I open up, it's like, oh my gosh. So, but here we are. And I'm hoping I have the pleasure of just doing this for many years to come.
That's awesome. And hearing your story, it seems like you jumped through a whole bunch of hoops and banged on a whole bunch of closed doors until they open for you. Because I believe as women, there are so many things that are blocking us from being successful or living out our dreams and going against the norm. Like you said, that there was the womanhood, there was the cultural difference, there was the difficulty of your name, there was all of these things that everyone was just telling you, oh no, you're not good enough. You can like, I think that in this world, we need this space to tell women that, listen, stop listening to all of the doubts, all of the fears, everyone projecting their fears and their doubts on you. Just pursue what makes you happy, what drives you, you know? And I just love the fact that you've also taken a part into helping those who are less fortunate with food stamps and creating a meal plan, because I think it's very hard when you don't have the tools or the knowledge to know what is healthy. Like a lot of things from our past, we may have grown up with, and we have to reverse that to say, you know what, that's really not healthy. That's really not the way it's supposed to be, even though that's the way I grew up. We need to make changes and to reverse the cycle just to, be better in life. So I want to know, what was your thinking process? I think that's the most important part right now, is the change in mindset, because you could have let those thoughts and those words consume you and say, you know what, I'm really not good enough. I really can't do this. How were you able to make a mindset shift to say, you know what, I don't care what they're saying. I know that I'm better. I know that I'm capable, and I know that I can succeed in this.
Think that's actually a really good question. And you mentioned something that it's the core of, if I wake up one day and I feel like I want to just not participate in that day, this is what gets me out of the bed. It could be because we're women, but it could be because I got the privilege of, I grew up in many non-fortunate individuals. I always refer to myself as fortunate because it wasn't about the money in my pocket. It was actually who I was surrounded with. Even if we had like 2 eggs and a piece of bread to eat, it was always with laughter. And that's, for me, it's wealth. This is coming from a woman who's no longer, like, there was a time that I had $400 to live off of, and I was in school, I was working, and there was just a lot of, I think at that point 400 wasn't bad, and I had to get a roof and pay the rent and X, Y, and Z. Today, I'm not that woman. Today, I'm the fortunate individual that I could feed myself. But my purpose, or my drive, came from all those individuals that I actually witnessed through my life. I do believe women are the educators of their community. Not to say I was raised and grown up by men, brought up by men that were so strong, not to kind of put gender on it, but I do feel like, as you said, for women, we have few obstacles because there's this traditional fact of look good, wear a dress, you can be educated, but eventually you're just going to take care of the kids, right? And
Right.
I want all the women to have that part. I always say, I want to be a 1950s woman with a PhD because I wanted to. And I want to get paid the same amount. But I watched so many, and this was actually the experience, a part of my life between 7 and 10, that I was brought up by the Wool Center community. And I watched the women, how when the kids came in, when the husband came in, when the brother came in, when the father came in, the women were the program managers for that pay. And how that when there was a problem, you didn't go to dad, you went to mom because mom would fix it, or aunt would fix it, or grandma would fix it. So I seen too many women that, particularly in the settings they had, they didn't give up. They absolutely did not give up, and they didn't have the roof over their head or the chance to go to school. So the first time I remember when I heard the first no, it was kind of challenging that piece of me that I can roll over. I could probably find a job and it would be great, or I can go to another field. But why are you telling me no? And I don't know at the time, because the program, when I went in, my school actually had maybe 3 men in the nutrition program and mostly women. But one by one, actually, I know 3 successful individuals out of class of 30. All of them were told the same thing by school that they were, and my school is phenomenal, but by the system, I should say, that maybe you get a degree and then you just raise the kid. I know mothers, I know women that single-handedly handle 5 different things. And at the end of the day, they look like they were just shopping for the makeup. I want to be, if they can do it, I have no excuse. I have all my fingers and toes. I have my body, I have my health. And when the women are the pillars and the program managers, when you go out and set out to educate and fully give right information. When I went to school, all through high school, I knew nothing about things that I actually talked to my clients about. When I went to undergrad, I also learned in books 2 + 2 = 4, or eat your veggies is good for you. No one put it in context when before I actually started sitting in front of individuals and put the human aspect, that the mother or the woman in the family really make the health for everyone, not just themselves, possible. And then to have information is gold, knowledge is money, to kind of be able to, in a packageable, sustainable, actionable ways without shame and guilt. You don't make a lot of money, you can't buy organic food, therefore you're not good. That doesn't fit in my book. You can't afford to, so as an individual who's successful, I have a rate. But at the same time, I particularly plastered it all over my website. I do not mind if you can afford me or not. Call me, contact me, get in touch. I make a decision of if it's fit for me or not, because the person who has the courage to show up and wants to educate yourself, that's the person that I'm happy to grab a piece of myself, just like someone else did that for me, and pass that on, because that's the cycle that keeps going on. And for women, men, my male clients are phenomenal, but they are able to ask. They're very direct and they feel like this is their right. My women clients are even, I had this conversation at a grocery store the other day with mask and all the social distancing. It's like, this person really wanted to know something, but she was shy because we women should be preserved. We should not ask. And it's okay if we don't know. Nobody's expecting us. Right. No. And I said, I pulled it over. I'm like, here's my number. Here's my card. I know with a mask, it's really hard to talk, but let's get on the phone. So that inspires me. But I have had so many simple individuals, as just simply watching a mother who has to take care of the household stuff, work in a farm, and at the same time keep the house meticulous. If a woman 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago could do that, what excuse do I have? So I think it was my fellow women peers who, without so humbly, did what they thought that should be a day-to-day task, that kind of brought me up here. But actually, even today, I open a little bit of a can of worms, but I would say the person who sits in front of you, 2015, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. That means my immune system likes to fight against my organ system. I was really sick. In a matter of 3 weeks, I lost 20 pounds and I was hospitalized. Wow. So that gave me compassion and a view to something like, when someone goes through it, how do you deal with that? Past that, in 2018, genetically, I'm very blessed, but apparently there's few not so great genes in there. So I was a candidate for breast cancer. I had to go through that. Thankfully, I'm in a stage that is very stable, and I don't have to walk through what majority of my clients go through, but it was pretty scary. And then last year, just minding my own business, I got into an accident and I had brain injury. All of those. Wow. I knew women, I knew individuals, I knew scholars that have gone through it, and I could never, ever, I always thought, oh, wow, she's very smart. She has a great support. She has a good husband. She has a good wife, X, Y, and Z. What I didn't actually, and it was the gift in my life, was, no, they were tenacious. They were not going to back down. They were not going to be defined by what was given. And I think my goal by living it is to teach my fellow women that we get bogged down, but they always say women are multitaskers. For that, we find a way to circle around that obstacle and actually find our way.
Oh, definitely. I definitely can say I'm like a woman with like octopus hands, just trying to do everything at one time. And I have to say, Maya, relax a little bit. Just, take it easy. Because it's like I will sit there and try to do like multiple things at a time, and it gets done. But sometimes, you can drive yourself crazy like that. So, but no, like everything you're saying is so true. We as women, we don't even know our own power, I feel like. And it's up to us women who are in that space where we begin to recognize our value, begin to recognize our power and exercise those things, is to help other women find that value within themselves and find that power and bring it out of them, to know that, everything you've been through, just the course of events that you said that you've been through, the autoimmune disease, the car accident, all of that, it's just to say, if every day is not promised. Every day something tragic could happen. So why not live life to your potential? Why not live carelessly to, just do what you want and not what society says that you want to do? I mean, I spoke to someone else, I think last week about, who created the rules for what it means to be a woman. All right, we really need to have a conversation because, some of these are a little bit old school and we need to revise these rules. So
I'm right there with you. I love what you say about that. And actually you being another example of someone who is really grabbing your potentials, and we still don't know what we can do. I mean, I love it to
right.
be living in this era where I get to look at social media and I get to see praises for women all over the world. One of our best mathematicians is a woman right now. In NASA, before time, we had 3 women that made NASA. I mean, I like NASA, but you know what I mean. So, and there is every corner and cranny and nook. We have microloans that go into women's businesses that has a 98% return rate. It's lovely. I think this is the time to, I don't know if I ever wanted to be a man, but this is the era to be a woman and actually be proud of it. One thing I'd like to actually say, because I do actually see it, and this is me putting the practitioner hat on. I love and I always talk and I try to inspire women. But one thing I would bring, and you touched it, we also get caught up into, because we can, we spread ourselves 15 ways to Sunday and actually feel guilty when we feel exhausted. I think there were many times, was it 2 weeks ago? I definitely hit a wall. I love to be active and I love to be doing multiple different things. But Monday of 2 weeks ago, I got up and I decided it is absolutely okay to not be able to do it all. It took me about a week to kind of come back, and I'm terrible. I'm terrible with social media. I'm slowly getting back. I love so much being with clients that sometimes to find on social media, but I actually kind of got up and blogged about it to kind of put it out there that the definition of not being, I mean, you can be successful and you can totally take a sabbatical from doing 15 things. And I think us, the limitations we put ourselves, we can't, but also that same can't in, it is perfectly okay that if you want to sit on the couch and for 3 hours, just think or do nothing. That is also okay. That's not being lazy. When a man does it, they're resting. Why can't we do it?
Right.
A different definition. So I think I struggle as a woman in between the finding that fine tune of the boundary of like, no, live to my full potential. But honest to God, what you said was beautiful. 3 times in my life, I thought I would live forever. I don't know why. I have a complex. Or at least I want to. I love knowing more stories. But then 3 times I actually had to stop. And the first time I had to write a will, I just paused and I went like, my bucket list is not to go. I mean, yes, traveling is something I would love to do. Maybe not this year, but there is so many things. I like to wake up and eat breakfast at noon. I like to wake up and have eggs at midnight. There's so many things. I would like to squeeze my nephew till he actually choke and turn red and my sister yells at me. There's just so many things. I do actually, crazy enough, would like to go back to school and push myself one more time to see what else can I learn. And all those things were for tomorrow, or I'll do it next week, or I'll do it, a couple of weeks from now after this get done and after that get done. And I truly was lucky to be around. And I think cats have 7 lives, but if 3 is the number, I'm all out of luck. Next time I'll be express north. So I kind of talked, and I'm very spiritual, but I'm like, I have stuff here to do. You can't take me. I'm not quite ready yet. So we have a direct conversation of like,
not my time.
Not right now. But that's another part. Breaking ourselves is also, women should be able to do it all. I would actually say, in order to be successful, we need to have boundaries. And I think women are the worst ones to create that boundaries. We do it for everything else, but it comes to ourselves. We take that me time and devote it to something else. So you just said it, and I look up to you. So it's lovely that like, okay, sometimes I just need to pause. Sometimes I want to do it 15 ways. So, and both of them are okay.
Because I know that, especially, okay, you're in health and nutrition, so you already know that the body has to rest. I mean, you can put whatever foods you want in it, the good stuff, but if your body literally says, listen, I've had enough, then you can put whatever foods you want in it or whatever, but your body's going to just take that rest. And you don't want to get to that point where you're like in a hospital bed with an IV line and all of this stuff. You don't want to do that. So you have to realize when it's time to just rest and not feel guilty for it. And I think as women, because in society we've always been so, sheltered in a sense, or hushed, from our potential, or to like speak up. We're always in this point in time, we're trying to prove ourselves. And it's like, listen, just relax. You can prove yourself, but you don't have to literally go above and beyond every single day. It's okay to take a day for rest. Like, you don't have to work every single day. You don't have to be superwoman every single day. Like, it's okay to take off your cape.
I love that you say that. And actually, I always try not to be, I'm a geek, and I love, for me, my life, my personal life and professional life, what I think, what I do, thankfully is very in line. And that's why I said I'm really lucky. But you're correct. Firsthand, I have seen people that they take care of their eating and exercise to the best. I mean, I sometimes feel like, wow, I'm coming short compared to you. But when they don't have, I mean, it's a car. I always tell people, if you're going to go on a road trip and you're going from Florida to Washington State, from one end of the state to the other one, you can't just you can get the best tank of gas. You can take your car to, the best mechanic. But guess what? This journey, there's multiple stops, there's multiple potholes, there's a deer that jumps in front of you, there's a flat tire you're going to have. So body's exactly the same way. I have had actually, one of my really, really good friends, she sent a message to me and said, Haleh, exteriorly, I look great. And honestly, this woman looks amazing. She had 2 babies, but she is strong. I'm actually not a big fan of the words thick or thin. She is strong. I know this woman, she can handle her, like she really is nourished. But she said internally, I run after 2 kids. I do my work. I support my husband. I'm taking care of my family. I am exhausted. Something is so wrong that I feel like the facade is going to crumble down. And I'm afraid because everybody comes to me as their go-to. And so we had to have this kind of a friend, but also very serious part. And I said, what do you think heart attack is? What do you think nervous breakdown is? What do you think the shingles is? What do you think, like, people get this stress? I actually seen it with COVID, and this is maybe coinciding with a good time. I've seen more individuals give themselves health conditions that it has nothing to do. Like, I know people that go in kayaking or go in running, or they have home gyms and they really cook their food, but they're getting sick left and right. And that is that maybe overburdened and not really that stop point. They are at the doing time of, like, this is the one time in the world that we have to really experience everything, family time, eating time, X time. I have a client that she ended up having rashes on her hand that nobody knew what it was. Turns out it's a stress rash. So these are little pieces, but yes, being in that other part, having the privilege of sitting on the other side of the table and seeing all those things. When the body wants to stop, there is really nothing we can do to convince it.
Right.
And so God help us, if you push that body too far, it will take you to places that coming back and recovering can take 14, 18, or 24 months. And that is just to say, you're biologically, like your physician doesn't say, oh, wow, you're in a critical point. That doesn't mean your body's back into a safe place. And then just like a kid, the body actually, I read a book that I loved it. It's not really relevant to nutrition, but it said body keeps scores. And it's talking about trauma. And it's not trauma of, gosh, I went to war and came back. It's the trauma of what you have done to your body. And then 10 years later, it remembers. And then you do one thing, push it too far. It's like, oh, do you remember this? This is my sticky note from 10 years ago. Yeah, I'm going to use it. It's like, Oh my God.
Right. It's like, wait a minute. You know what happened last time. I'm just gonna shut down before you even push it too
Yes.
far.
Yes. And women, I hate to say this. It's not that we're a higher subject to those than men are. Somehow, if we could kind
Mhm.
of borrow that capability, that internal, when a man is tired, and again, I have wonderful men in my life. I will be the first one to say, like, single fathers,
Mhm.
single uncles, single grandfathers, whichever they are, or together ones. But men innately have this power of, once they sense something, they
Mhm.
are not in a fight with themselves to shut themselves down or keep going. They would actually give the
Mhm.
rest because they know tomorrow they can do 2 times as more. We women
Right.
sometimes even, so I like to kind of put it out there, because when we get inspired, we get all our juices boiling and it's like go
Mhm.
time. But I always say, give it a 90%, allow a 10% as a backup. Think of it as a savings account. If you
Mhm.
had $10,000, which is a good amount of money, if you use all the $10,000 and then your car breaks down, what are you going to do? Put it on a
Right.
credit card?
Can't do nothing.
Body doesn't have a credit card. So I love
No,
that you brought that
seriously.
up.
No, seriously. Okay, so short story. One of my favorite shows is Grey's Anatomy. I don't know anybody who watches it, you know that, if you're a Grey's fan, you're just like crazy about the show. But I was rewatching it because I was having my boyfriend. I was like, you gotta watch this show. So like now he's in love with it. So I was like, so the recent episode that I just watched, it was like Bailey, she's okay, so if any listeners don't know, Bailey is, this black woman. She has now overcome from being an intern to now being a chief of surgery. And, that one point where she was like, you know what, I need to just take a break for a while because I'm not okay. And she had Karev. Karev is a guy and he is the head of peds surgery. So she had Karev come in and step in for 6 months to be her interim chief of surgery. And then she's coming in and she's like, because Karev has gone and given all this work that she usually does to the interns. He's like delegating now because he's like, listen, I don't want to do all this. I got too much going on. And she's like, what? He did something better than me? Like, I think that's a great example because it's like, listen, the man sat here and said, you know what, I don't want to do all this. I can't do all of this. I'm gonna stress myself out. Let me just hand it off to someone else who can help. And then she was just like taking everything on herself. And, I think that's a great example of, sometimes as women, we have to realize that, we can't do everything. We have to ask for help sometimes.
I love that you said that. Actually, so because I am Seattle based and Michigan based, meaning
Uh-huh.
currently I haven't been back to Washington since March, but those are the two places I live in. So Grey's Anatomy came out and I was like, go Seattle. So I love that you said it because it has a very close place. I take pride in
Yeah.
it. But though it did not even get filmed in Washington State, but it's okay.
I know.
That was exactly, I remember that episode because I remember we were in school or maybe I was but I was talking to a friend of mine and said, we call it farming. And I actually
Mhm.
think there is a talent into, if other people can do it good, you can be. And remember when I first started, I said, women are great project managers. But then when you
Mhm.
forget that you're a project manager and start doing all the little work, you're not only a
Right.
project manager, you're doing all those things. And there's
Right. It's like having an assistant and taking on all their work and yours too, and they're just sitting there not doing anything because you want to do everything yourself. Or I feel like we have this complex where no one can do it as good as I can, so I
yes.
have to do it because no one's going to learn how to do it like I can. Listen, everyone has to learn eventually. So literally just give it to them and learn. If they don't do it right, just tell them that they didn't do it right and teach them how to do it. Like at the end of the day, you can't do everything. You have to relax. You have to delegate things. You have to ask for help.
I love that you said that. Actually, this is a tribute to my professor, who was the first person who decided to hire me. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
I mean, not unfortunately, fortunately, she's healthy and happy and working. But I remember she had one-on-ones. I'm pretty sure when I first
Hmm.
started, I was I had a lot of challenges, but I remember one time, and she would weekly, we had like a mentor call that she would go over the week, like, how did it go? Da, 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 da. And then one day
Mhm.
she goes, I said, how did I do? Um, let's call her Jennifer. Like, how did I do, Jennifer? She goes, you really sucked. But what I liked is you showed up and then you took responsibility, and now we're having a conversation. So as much as you don't know it, I think being coachable is good, but that's exactly the part.
Mhm.
I have that issue. It has taken me forever to actually, from work, I like to say I'm a one-woman show. From when you call, you get me. When you email, you get me. But there is a time, and I like that personal touch. But like when it came to media and like supporting, thinking about 1,000 other materials or scheduling myself, the best thing I did like probably 10, 15 years ago was get an online calendar. I'm like, what? People can sign up
No,
and schedule
seriously.
themselves.
Oh my
So delegating is important. And I think more successful women or more successful individuals that I see is they learn the trade, they know how to do it, but instead of inserting themselves in those phases, they actually take on the mentor role, which I think there is a great, I mean, you can't know it all. What happens when you're not around? What happens
Mhm.
when something happens to you? I say that to myself quite a bit, like, okay, if I was deleted from the scene of life, which I'm not planning to, but then
Right.
who's gonna do this? Because I'm actually finally in a part of, I started kind of taking on new applications of bringing new nutritionists on and coaching them.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure there will be a time that I'm going like, oh my God, you did it that way. But that I was that person. According to my
Right.
first mentor, I sucked, but I showed up, I apologized, and I continued. And
Right.
that's,
You have to realize that you were once in that space as well. So you have to be able to teach others. And I think it's really important because, especially in this day and time, we have so many people who don't realize that you were once in that space.
mhm,
And it's okay for them not to know everything because it was a time where you didn't know everything. And you probably still don't know everything. So
exactly.
just right. So just be open. I think even in your older ages, like be open to new ideas because I think sometimes, sometimes the old way is not the way to do it. Sometimes we find new discoveries and we need to adjust in it. And it's like, okay, everyone in everyone's age needs to be open to change, open to education, and open to being coachable because I think that's important what you said, being coachable. I think a lot of people have this complex, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. Nobody can really tell me what I'm doing, how to do it, how to, what to do. But we need to be open to change and improvement and all of these different aspects to make our lives better, to give better services, to just be better overall in general. And I think that's not even just for female, that's all around for women and men.
No, I love it, and I think that's the secret sauce. I always say
Mhm.
McDonald's have done really well because of their secret sauce and many other parts. But when you look at anyone who can stand on their 2 feet or actually start an empire, it's up to you how big you want to expand your. Some people are happy with one thing. Some people are happy with 10 things, but coachability brings a humbleness. And actually, I would
Mhm.
say there's a God complex that sometimes when you have experience, I have to, not that I have a God complex, I have many other complexes, but staying humble, because every day, there's not a day,
Mhm.
even in my career, after this many years of being in the field, that like last night, I sat going like, I had no idea. Like I learned something new, but I learned, and I think that my first uh, technically coach and mentor who kind of put it in me that be okay with somebody disagreeing with you, be okay with someone telling you nope, this is not good enough, and push it. And
Mhm.
that kind of, you stay open, and then guess what, you always bring things up. For women, there's a shame associated with not knowing, actually for men too, because they actually look at the different hierarchy of men, can't be wrong, but if
Right.
you can actually swallow that pride and realize it's not about a pride, and be open and actually actively seeking about how can I be better, whatever you're doing.
Mhm.
To the first question that you asked, I literally went to all my professors after saying no, and I asked, okay, you don't think I'm really good candidate, I should not ever, they were saying I have a lot of flowery language, to be in a one-on-one counseling I probably would not be very strong because I can't be assertive. So I went back and I said, how
Mm-hmm.
can I learn to be assertive? Turns out, actually, you don't need to be assertive. You need to be compassionate and knowledgeable. But
Right.
it doesn't hurt to ask. These individuals have been teaching for 25 years. What do I know? I'm a green, plant. So I think if we remember that, particularly because we don't know everything. I still don't know
Mm-hmm.
many different parts. But as we're becoming more successful, particularly if we're the first ones in our family, in our community, in our social group, overcoming something, there's no blueprint. And it's okay not to have a blueprint. And that is why
Right.
there are other people and other parts staying open and just be moldable. Somebody gave me the analogy of, have you noticed water always takes a shape of a jar or a container that you put it in? It's the same
Mm-hmm.
water, but you can look at it, and if you freeze it, then you get multiple different shaped ice cubes. I think
Mm-hmm.
if we can kind of hold on to that analogy and not let our personal feelings get hurt,
Mm-hmm.
that's by itself would be success.
Definitely. Wow. So if you had one last thing to say to our listeners to encourage and inspire women to dream without limitation, what would that be?
I would say fear is a very natural part of the human brain. Without it, we would not survive. However, don't let fear be the judge and the jury and the direction maker in your path. Be
Mm-hmm.
fearful in a sense of what you're going to do is good for you or it's going to do good for your community. But don't be fearful to look silly or be old or have a different skin color or your name be different. Don't let fear stop you, because every time someone didn't accomplish something is they allowed a feeling, not a true notion, stop them from going over the path that they're going to take. Anybody who's going to be a scholar meaning pushing through from where they are to the next step, fear is a part of it. But if it's crippling
Mm-hmm.
you, you're giving it power. And I'm hoping and I'm asking and I'm begging you to just think of it in a different way. Don't let it cripple you.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. Well, I this conversation was amazing. I'm so glad that I found another Grace fan because, I just like to have conversations about Grace because, Grace is just amazing.
Yes, me too.
But no, definitely. So I want to give you the opportunity to let the audience know if they want to reach out to you or if they want to follow your journey on social media. How can they find you?
I would love it. So my practice name, and I picked it purposely, Honu is Hawaiian for sea turtle. And one thing I love about it is if you leave a sea turtle in anywhere in the world, they always know how to find their way home. So that represents the
Wow.
journey of us to come back to our health. So I named my practice Honu Nutrition, or you can look for Haleh
Mhm.
Olsen. I'm actually a great participant in Instagram. I do have my website. I know I specialize, and I started saying I specialize in very particular areas, but one of my goals and one of my passions is education. Doesn't matter where you are, doesn't
Mhm.
matter what you know. I actually work with a lot of individuals who are healthy that like to stay that way. Contact me, email me, find me on Instagram. I also am on Pinterest. I love to be, even if it's just picking my brain, I love to be that one person to fills your community, whether it's for your health, whether it's for your success, or many other things.
Mhm.
So find me there, Honu Nutrition or Haleh Olsen. And I really appreciate it.
Um,
This was so lovely. I just love being a part of something that if just one person gets the courage after our conversation to push past their fear, I would be, I would be, today would be the best day of my life. I would be happy.
awesome, awesome. I enjoyed our conversation as well. It was amazing. I feel like I learned so many new things as well from just hearing your story and the different things that you talked about. But thank you again for joining our show and sharing your story. And I want to thank everyone as well for tuning in. I will have all of your links and everything that you wanted to share in the description for this episode. And thank you all for tuning in once again to Made to Dream. I'm your host, Maya Chanel, and I'll see you next time.